Hello class! Today we are going to have a special lesson. It's not on this crappy shark figure here, and it's not on this handy dandy multi-purpose water sprayer that we've got shark riding on. Today we are going to have a lesson on who reviews the reviewers. Whoa! So we're doing the last challenge, the ultimate challenge, and so we're going to look at the who reviews the reviewers contest. So I think first what we'll do is we'll talk about what's going on, how it runs, and then we'll talk about some of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, let's get started.
Okay, so before we get into too much of the critique about who reviews the reviewers, we probably should talk about what this whole thing is. And really, it is a contest on YouTube where a number of YouTube reviewers of various geek-related things, action figures, movies, comic books, things like that, they create challenge videos with a certain topic in mind, which we'll get into, and then they are judged by a number of judges. Now, this whole thing is hosted by Geekvolution, and the whole thing does appear to be run by Captain Logan. Now, Logan has assembled a number of judges. They include Browncoat Eric, The Real Manos, Captain Logan, of course, because, you know, he's there, and Vince, and, of course, the Review Spot. Now, the way this whole thing all started is that there was an initial 2-minute video that a number of people created as an entry for the contest. From there, the judges selected, I don't know exactly how, but they selected a number of contestants then for the contest to do further challenges. Now, they did select a number, what was it, 7 or 8? Anyways, this motley crew became the contestants for who reviews the reviewers. Now, the challenges themselves, they all involved a certain specific subject or topic that the reviewers had to do. And some of these topics included things like something that came out 10 years before the year you were born, something that really you don't like or something that's horrible, and then finally there was also a review where you had to do a video based on one of the judges' videos. It was like a meta review or something like that, some kind of critique. Now, after each challenge, there is a judging panel. And within these panels or discussions, there's a big, I'm guessing it's some kind of Skype conversation that goes on, and what happens is eventually the judges decide on a top banana, the person that they think is the best for that particular challenge, and then someone is eliminated. Now, these challenges, there's been a few of them, about what, a half dozen or so far, and they've, you know, been pretty grueling. We've lost a competitor after each challenge, and somewhere through the works we even lost one of the judges. That's how tough they've been. Captain Logan is a harsh and cruel slave driver, it seems. Now, as we said, Captain Logan is the host of this thing. He seems to be the director, planner, craft services, art director, and gaffer as well, whatever the hell they do. And again, Captain Logan gathers the judges and they have some kind of discussion, probably over Skype or something, where they discuss the videos. Now, in there, they critique it. They do talk about what's good and what's bad. Now, the one thing that's nice about this is obviously you're going to hear what's good, and that boosts everyone's confidence, which is excellent, but you also hear what's bad. Now, it's done in a way that's not terribly harsh. You're not just going to hear, you suck, and you should quit doing this. At least I don't think we've heard that. That wouldn't be too nice. But it is done in a constructive kind of way. And what's nice about this is, you know, you can't fix something that's wrong unless you hear about it. And maybe nobody else has said anything before. So it is kind of nice to hear that kind of critique, and it helps you figure out maybe what you can change. Now, the challenges themselves, they are different, and quite often there are different topics, and the whole idea has been to kind of throw a monkey wrench into the challengers' different styles. Not every particular topic has been able to fit into each reviewer's method or style of reviewing. Now, what that means is that it causes the reviewers, the contestants, to be creative. They have to think of ways to work this in. You have to think outside of the box a little bit. And that is really good. Let's face it, you can't get better doing something if you do the same thing over and over again. The only way is to challenge yourself to think differently, to do things differently. Now, again, with some of these changes in style, some of these things work out really well. You learn how you can make new kind of content for your channel. You can sit there and say, yeah, I can do this better. There's better editing techniques, maybe ways to get better sound quality that you didn't know about before. So it works out really, really well. On the other hand, sometimes some of these new challenges and what comes up with them and what you create totally suck and they're crap, and you're probably going to hear about it. But you won't know if you don't try, right? So it's good to be able to do it in that format, and you never would have been forced to. Now let's face it, some of these ones that aren't so good, yeah, we wish we could delete them from the interwebs and get rid of them entirely, but unfortunately the net doesn't really work that way now, does it? So, as I said, it leads to increased creativity, and that is excellent. Now, the group itself, and it's a disparate group, they're all kind of different, and they all have their own channels and their own things that they do. They're actually quite entertaining to listen to. Actually, I shouldn't have said actually there. That wasn't very nice. But they are entertaining to listen to. It's a bunch of geeks sitting around talking about geek stuff. And if you are a geek, and if you're watching this, you probably are, it's nice to just hear that kind of thing. You get their opinions on the topics that have been reviewed and what's going on. Now, they do occasionally run on tangents, like this one time when I was starting to talk about my cat. But, you know, let's face it, we all do it. And it's not too bad to listen to. I mean, if we really have a problem with the amount of time we're spending on this, you know, we can just put it on in the background and go back to killing zombies or something. Now, one other thing that's really nice about this is there does appear to be a format to it. You do have to be critical of what's going on. You can't simply just say, yep, this is such and such, here's an apple, it's red, it's got a stem and a core and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's wonderful. You know, you can see that kind of stuff on Wiki. You do have to be critical on things. And if you're not, the judges will call you on it. And that is really nice because everybody can just shoot a video to say, here's an apple, it's red, that's wonderful. But what are some of the likes and dislikes about, well, an apple? I like the fact that they're crunchy and they taste good. I don't like the fact that I'm not allowed to throw them at people. At any rate, we do have to be critical of these kind of things, and that is really nice to see when we hear the judging. And hey, you know what? Lastly, kind of my last point for some of the positives about the WRTR is that, you know what? It creates exposure for the contestants. And that is really excellent. I think there was a condition upon entering the number of subscribers that the contestants had. And that's really nice. It does get them more exposure from other channels that obviously have more of the viewership. And it lets other people see what else is out there. So that is really nice too. Now I have to say, okay, I've been talking nice about people for a while and I'm starting to break out in hives, so we do have to move on to some criticisms as well.
So in terms of criticisms, I think it's really important that first we get rid of the elephant in the room. Whoa, jeez, sorry kitty.
So what is this cute little fluffy elephant the evil professor is referring to that has no business being on the screen? Well, it's the amount of time that has passed since the beginning of the contest. When the things first started, you know, a week to shoot the video, and then a week later the critique, and then the judging, and then, you know, things would carry on from there, and then there's a little more time, a week or two. But with the last couple, as everybody has seen, we've literally had months in between. A long, long period of time. Now, that is understandable. You've got 5 people, now 4, maybe 5 again, who live in different places, different time zones, have different work schedules, and have different lives going on. Sometimes I think we tend to forget that these people are more than just disembodied voices over the internet. Right? So it does make sense that it can be hard to get a group of people together, and if somebody has a real problem that comes up or something that has to be dealt with, they just don't have time to get together with a few other geeks on Skype to talk about some other YouTube videos. Okay? So those kind of things do in fact happen. But what this also means is that it's not, I don't want to say people have lost interest, but what's going on and you kind of forget about it. And part of the challenge of Who Reviews the Reviewers that I thought was really, really great was the time crunch. Really, you had to be creative in a short period of time. You had to figure out, what am I going to shoot? Is the idea any good? Shoot the video, edit it, and hopefully post it in the time frame allowed. Captain Logan has now allowed more time for the creation of these videos. And that's good because you have more time. Unless you like to procrastinate. But having that time crunch creates more of a sense of urgency, and it's really nice to see what people can come up with in a limited period of time. And now I think the last thing that needs to be addressed, and this is not necessarily a critique of the contest or any of the judges themselves. However, whenever you have a contest that involves any kind of artistic ability or subjective subject matter, that was a little bit odd, there is a certain amount of qualitative judgment. I like this, I don't like that. Now, I'm pretty sure Captain Logan has gone through and set there's certain guidelines. Maybe wrote them down, maybe didn't, but I'm pretty sure all the judges have had it. They have to be critical. It has to maybe be organized. The person can't talk like an idiot the whole time, maybe just part of the time. And they go through and they do a critique based on those factors, but there is always going to be that element of I like this, I don't like that. It's subjective, and unfortunately that's just the way these things go. Someone could put together their best video, or what they think is their best, and maybe it's just not as good as everyone else's, or maybe it just wasn't the other judge's cup of tea. And really that's all it boils down to. Or maybe there was a point you were trying to make and maybe that point was lost. And again, that's just the nature of doing something that's subjective. And while it can be bad, there's really nothing that can be done about it. It's not a technical aspect that we're dealing with. You can't say these numbers match perfectly and the solution is 5/2. It just doesn't work that way. So it is kind of bad that it is all subjective to a certain degree. As I said, I'm sure there are certain guidelines, but we have to take into account the fact that it is, to a certain degree, it comes down to I like this better than I like that. I like one video over the other. And is that always good? No, actually I don't think it is, but there's really nothing that can be done about it. So I think that is something that we do have to keep in mind.
Okay, so to give a brief recap for what's going on, shark still sucks. The water spritzer is still awesome. Oh wait, that's not really what we're talking about, is it? I can grab my handy dandy whiteboard, and there we've got WRTR across the top, and we can recap a little bit. So, on the plus side of things, the contest helps with creativity for the contestants. A lot of the challenges don't really fit into the contestants' wheelhouse, so to speak, and so they've got to figure out how to adapt their style to the challenges that come forward. That's really good, because the more creative you are, the better videos you can create, and then you can start creating different content. The next one that we're going to have is exposure. I believe one of the rules for entry was based on the number of subscribers that the participants had. Obviously, I guess kind of the hope is that you're going to get more exposure as you continue doing these challenges. And then lastly, it is fun to watch. Not only have the challenger videos been entertaining to watch, so has been the judging. Now, as I said, they go on, but you know what? I think even one of the judges said before, it's nice to just kind of put on the background, and you can start playing Plants vs. Zombies or Bloons or whatever, or do your taxes or something, and you can still hear it all. It's really good. However, whoa, big orange line there. One of my special abilities is to find the bad in any situation. I can thank my grandfather and Irish heritage for that. One of the things that is a negative was the amount of time that has elapsed. And again, we spoke about that. I'm not going to beat the tar out of that elephant any more than we already have. But it has gone on for a pretty long time, and we know why that's happened, and that's cool. But you started to wonder, especially with the last one, is it still going on? And if you checked Geekvolution's channel, even in the comments, hey, what's happened to WRTR? And I know that things have been happening, and Captain Logan has been trying to get that sorted out. And I'm sure the judging for the last challenge will be spot on in real quick. And the other part is that, and again, it's just part of the whole process, is that it is subjective. And that's not necessarily a knock against the contest or any of the judges themselves. It's just that by the nature of doing something creative and having other people critique it, is that some people are going to like it and some people aren't. That's really just the way it's going to be. And unfortunately, that just means that something that one person thinks is really great and it gets a point across and it's exactly what you want to say, other people aren't going to agree with you. And unfortunately, that's just even the nature of the internet. That's the way these things go. So, in terms of final thoughts for this challenge, or sorry, for this contest, I'd have to say the whole contest is really good. I'm expecting Captain Logan eventually, when he works up the courage, is going to host another one of these things. It's going to be Who Reviews Reviewers Season 2, The Revenge, or The Return, or something. I would encourage anybody who has thought about doing it, maybe chickened out the first time, didn't hear about it in time for the first round of Who Reviews the Reviewers, definitely give it a shot. It'll help you create, in terms of creativity, help you with exposure, and you should have a fun time doing it, and it's fun to watch. So if I had to give the whole thing a grade, which I am going to do, I would give the whole thing an A grade. It's awesome. It's been excellent. It's been fun to watch, and I encourage everybody to have a go at it if Captain Logan does another, and if he's not too sure, start pressuring him. So, I believe that is our lesson. We were talking about Who Reviews the Reviewers, the entire contest. Thank you very much, and class is dismissed.